Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat
It's
Shalom.
always so good to see you on Friday nights at this Kabbalat Shabbat service, beautifully led by Cantor Dale Schatz. I would like to bring up two different ideas this evening. The first is the Torah Parsha. The portion that we're reading tomorrow is Tazria Metzora. And the second is, of course, Israel's Independence Day, Yom Ha'atzmaut, the celebration of the state of Israel being a reality in our lives, in our time, and the time of our children and their children's children. So this is always the week of the year that I explain to you, right? That in the Torah it says, if you notice some strange skin ailment on your body, please go to the Kohen, please go to the priest in the community for them to take a look at it. And I always remind you that if you find something on your body, please go to a dermatologist. Do not make an appointment with Joanna in my office. Especially if COVID has taught us anything, right? Go see a doctor right away. But the commentary on Tazria Metzora bring up a very interesting explanation, one they had not thought of before. And I wanted to talk about it this evening in light of Yom Ha'atzmaut, because tomorrow I'm actually not going to be speaking about the Parsha. I'm going to be discussing a poem, a Zionist poem, written in the early part of the 20th century by a writer by the name of Uri Tzvi Greenberg, that a friend of mine from Ziegler, who now lives in Tel Aviv, posted a long reflection on, and I found it so interesting that I wanted to bring it to the congregation. So thank you, Rabbi Joe Schwartz, for posting it this week. The commentary that I read this week on the Parsha is one of the Lubavitch Chabad tradition. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, he quotes actually a section from the Talmud of Sanhedrin that talks about how the Mashiach, the Messiah, we talked about that a little bit in class on Thursday, because there's much, of course, messianic themes when we talk about the state of Israel, swirling all around us. But the Rebbe quotes a section of Talmud that says that the Mashiach wanders the world with Tazria Metzora, separate from the community, separated away, and that it's waiting for a time to be pure enough to be welcomed back. This is in contrast with the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad rabbi, right, Rebbe Shneur Zalman of Liadi. He writes that Tazria Metzora, that this ailment occurs when people lose their chokhmah, when they lose their wisdom. So they go to the Kohen Gadol in order for that high priest to teach them Torah once again. And then when someone loses their sense of wisdom, they need for it to be reinstilled in us, in them, in the Jewish people. Both of those comments I found to be so interesting because it creates a kind of interconnected relationship between either the Mashiach and the Jewish people, and also between the sick and the Kohen Gadol, or the one who's lost his or her wisdom and the Kohen Gadol. We don't think of the Kohen Gadol's need for people to come to them in order to teach Torah. We think of the need of the sick in order to be healed. In this way, we as a Jewish people are so interconnected. We need one another. We need the Kohen Gadol, and the Kohen Gadol needs us. We need the Mashiach, and the Mashiach needs us. And the state of Israel, I would argue, recognized this with the establishment of Yom Ha'atzmaut. Why do I say that? Because the Yom Ha'atzmaut that is on the calendar is supposed to be observed tonight. is supposed to be observed tonight and tomorrow. But it was understood from the beginning of the statehood that when Yom HaAtzmaut fell out on Shabbat, Yom HaAtzmaut would be pushed up 2 days earlier to the Thursday, to the Wednesday night and Thursday, instead of the Friday night and Saturday, so that everybody around the world, Jews everywhere, could celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut. There was not a decision that was made by religious people. I can absolutely assure you that the first Knesset was made up of many, many secular Zionists. And yet they still understood deep in their soul that there's an interconnected nature to the Jewish people. That even the most secular Zionists needed to keep the door open for the religious Jewish community to still celebrate and mark Yom HaAtzmaut. And the religious Jewish community will ultimately need the state of Israel. We, as a Jewish people, on the morning of Yom HaAtzmaut, read a Haftorah that I taught this past Thursday morning in Talking Torah class from the book of Isaiah, where Isaiah prophesizes a future redemption. And in that future redemption, the Jewish people will once again establish our own nation, our own kingdom. And after that happens for us, Isaiah warns us, or Isaiah prophesizes, recommends to us, that at that moment, it will be up to us. It'll be up to us for Judah to once again get along with Ephraim, and Ephraim to once again get along with Judah. That it'll be up to us as a Jewish people when we once again establish a kingdom for ourselves. We will have to decide how we treat one another. Whether or not we will make a home that's truly welcoming for all Jews. Ephraim meaning the northern kingdom, and Judah meaning the southern kingdom. Whether we can get along again at some future time. Isaiah tells us that when that kingdom rises, that we should open our arms to Jews from the four corners of the earth. That interconnected nature is the reason why we have candle lighting time. So that Jews all over the world can light candles at the same moment. So that we know here in Los Angeles that Jews in Tel Aviv are part of our family. And Jews in Tel Aviv know that we here in Los Angeles are a part of theirs. And so even though they get to eat fresh falafel and wonderful shawarma on Yom HaAtzmaut, and we tend to eat stale falafel and refrigerated hummus on Yom HaAtzmaut, we know that we're doing it together on Thursday because deep down we're all Jewish, and we wouldn't do it on Shabbat. And so this year, in a kind of magical way, Yom HaAtzmaut got moved to the 18th of the Omer, which in Hebrew is a lucky number because it forms the word Chai. And we toasted Israel with Israeli whiskey and said L'chaim, to life. Even when Yom HaAtzmaut goes back to the 20th day of the Omer, we should still toast Israel, L'chaim, to a life forever and ever and ever. Shabbat Shalom, and happy Yom HaAtzmaut, Chag Sameach.
Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach. Come together right now on Shabbat.